Jim and Ellen Hughes, thank you so much for joining us. You guys made it to Vancouver okay.
We're here in rainy Vancouver today.
I know that feeling.
So Schneid's obviously was the one who helped facilitate a lot of this interview. We really appreciate you guys joining us. I know there's a lot on your mind right now. He was lucky enough to host Jack's, I wanted to call it freshman year, but rookie year. What stories did he have about living with the Schneider family?
Well, it's hard to believe that that Jack has been in the league for 5 years.
That's a scary
and back when Corey and Jill had Jack, I think they were playing guitars in the basement and playing golf until wee hours in the morning down in the basement. So you trained them well.
And we're so thankful, Corey, as you know, for you and your wife and your two adorable little kids. And we look back on those days and we know we are so grateful to you and Jill. And it was great for Jack's transition. I don't know what we would have done and he would have done without you guys.
Well, I'm thankful for that. I'm just thankful you guys trusted us enough to take care of him for you. But the one thing that stuck out for me, at least with Jack and Quinn and Luke, was how close they are. I mean, just talking to Jack, he would always be on the phone with Quinn or always watching Luke's games. And you could tell that the three of them really pull for each other and they really support each other and just rooted for each other's success. So is it going to be interesting for you guys to watch all three of them tomorrow night play against each other? Or, you know, what's that going to feel like for you guys?
Well, I know like for them, and you know how they are, they're so competitive, each one of them. So it's all about for these guys, the win. They just see it as another game. But for me as a parent, like I think it'll really hit when I see all three of them on the ice at the same time. I know for me, and I said this to Jim earlier, that I love it when Jack and Luke are on the ice at the same time. I'm not going to love it when all three of them are on the ice at the same time.
Well, I wanted to ask who's your favorite, but I'm not going to ask that. Look, the one thing that I've noticed when I watch all three of them play, and I think it must have something to do with perhaps the way they were brought up, they make mistakes and it does not bother them. It's on to the next play because they know that they can get it back right away. But I think that that's such a good skill to have, and it seems like all three of them have that. Is there any reason you can think of that they are that way?
We can't put a finger on it. It's just play for the love of the game, and they played a lot of outdoor hockey when they were growing up. I think they all had coaches growing up that allowed them to play, not freely, but played with accountability, but allowed their natural instincts to come out during their youth hockey days with the Toronto Marlies and Mississauga Rebels. And I just think it's a combination of a lot of things in terms of how they grew, and they had a small village of people around them, coaches and strength coaches and all kinds of people, that really smart people that helped them on their path.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it all started at the beginning too. Dad, obviously, Jim, you were a coach traveling around coaching at various levels with various leagues. And of course, Mom, you won a world championship, 3-sport athlete in college. You taught the boys to skate. So I feel like at some point you could probably take credit for all of this. But at what point did you see something special in the three of these kids?
I don't know, for Jim and I think it's for so many families who have gone through this, it's a day-to-day process. And we, our greatest hope was that they would get the opportunity to play college hockey like we did. And I think it wasn't until each one of them in their own individual ways got to go to the U.S. National Development Program, and you see them playing with and against the best. And then you see them across, in international tournaments, and you realize that, this is pretty great and they're doing pretty good. And that's kind of how we looked at it. Like, your greatest hope was they could play college hockey, and they far exceeded that. And that's because of their own internal fuel. And I think just growing up around the game with Jimmy being involved in at the pro level, they got to see so many things and so many different players and the ups and downs. And that was normal process for them. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, when we were coaching in Boston, Robbie Fatorik's father was about 80 at the time, and one of the boys was 5 years old or 4 years old, and Ellen took him skating, and he wasn't skating very well. I think it was Quinn, and Mr. Fatorik said, "Well, there's something wrong there. I don't know what's happening." And they had this skate on their feet. So they figured out why he was skating so awkward. But it's been a journey. It's been a journey, and a lot of highs and lows and ups and downs. And We've met such wonderful people along the way, and here we are in Vancouver now, and have the opportunity to see the three of them on the same ice.
Well, that's the only time I think anyone's going to associate bad skating and Quinn together. Obviously, it's fun watching all these guys play, but when you go to visit them, now you're in the position, you've got them out of the house, they're all doing very well. You don't need to say who's the worst, but who's the best host when you guys come and stay for a few days, as far as making sure your bed's made, or doing a little something extra on your bedside, or just welcoming you? Who is the best host out of all three?
Well, we'll take Luke out of the equation because he's living with Jack, so that's easy. And then I think rightfully so, they're amazing. Like, we feel blessed that they invite us into their condos and they want us around. I think it's the cooking, is it right? We cook for them, and but it's just great. And I think what warms our heart is when they're all together last night, and just to hear them talk. Sometimes we wonder if we're even in the room. But to listen to the three of them talk amongst themselves and tell stories and play games, and it's great to see how close they are.
Yeah, you mentioned that, and you
Yeah,
talked about. Sorry, what's that?
They were playing board games at the kitchen table last night for several hours.
And it's
great.
all about winning there too.
Well, you brought it up. I mean, their competitiveness and being gracious hosts and all that. The one thing that stood out to me, meeting Quinn at the World Championships in 2019, that Jack was also there, and then obviously living with Jack. They're just great kids. They're highly competitive. They're motivated. They're focused. But Jack was an incredible house guest. He made his room. He was very respectful. Quinn the same way, maybe a little more soft-spoken, maybe not quite as much swagger as Jack. But and I got to meet Luke a few times there in Detroit. But you guys have done a great job raising those kids. But I know, Ellen, you told me a story. I was trying to get my son into hockey and get him into skating, and you said, just throw the equipment on him in the basement, put him on rollerblades, let him crash around and bang around and do whatever he wants, and he'll figure it out. So I want to know, what kind of ground rules did you have to set for them when they were kids, the three of them being so competitive and probably putting holes through walls and pucks through glass? What were some of the ground rules you had to lay out for them to make sure they didn't kill each other down there?
Well, it's funny because last night they were telling war stories, and it was, remember when I watched Miracle and I checked Jack into the boards, which he thought were boards, but it was actually the basement wall, and he had to go get stitches. Am I right? That was in Manchester when you're coaching with the Monarchs. And then you hear about, remember what happened to this guy, and remember when we were on the outdoor rink and I ripped Jack's braces off. So it's like one more story after another. So but that was their competitiveness. And I can remember when they got bigger in the basement in Mississauga, Ontario, they'd have tons of kids down there, and I could feel the wall shaking. So I had to go down there and be like, this is going to collapse. But I think because they were so close in age, they pushed each other.
And they root for each other. And listen, tomorrow night's game is a very important game for both teams in the standings. And it's just another hockey game for them. Might feel a little differently for Ellen and I, but for them, they're both trying to, the three of them are trying to play to the best of their abilities and see if they can get their team some points.
Jim, it's almost like you coached before. That was such coach speak, and I really appreciate you saying that, but I don't know if I truly buy it for a second. Now, there's this great story about the Tkachuk brothers when they play each other. Mama Tkachuk laid down the rule that there is no fighting between those two. We know it was melee the last time those two teams met up. My question for you, Ellen, is, and also this goes for you, Jim, like, are there any ground rules for the game tomorrow between the three of them? And also, what is the board game they were playing? I need to know.
Yeah.
Well, they were playing Rummy Cube last night, and they probably played 4 or 5 games. And then we had some steak dinners, and so it was good. It was good because Luke hasn't seen Quinn in probably 4 or 5 months. So it was good to see them catch up and have a few laughs together and so on. And
as far as the Tkachuk thing, I mean, they've been such great role models for us, and they're such great friends. They're like family to us. But I can tell you one thing, that we're not going to have to worry about fights with our kids. Is that about right?
Yeah, I don't think we're going to. We did.
And we don't, even if I gave them a ground, I don't know what they have amongst themselves, but we certainly would be the last to know.
Correct.
Well, it's great seeing you guys. Obviously in our house, we're still big Jack fans. Jill and the kids, they love even though I'm not on the Devils anymore, they still love tuning into games. I love watching games. I love watching him play and how he's matured and developed from that first year, because, as you know, it was a bit of a grind that first year, and he struggled a bit, and I just am pretty amazed at his resiliency to become the player he has. So we just want you to know that we're always watching Jack and rooting for him no matter what. And I'll definitely be tuning in tomorrow night, two of my former teams, and also the Hughes brothers for you guys. So it was obviously great seeing you guys again. I hope you enjoy it all tomorrow and just soak it in.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. And big hugs to you and Jill and the kids. And I hope the hockey's going well for your little guy and your little girl.
It's getting there. We're trying to convince them, but they like watching us, so at least we got that going for them.
That's
Hope to see you.
Oh, sorry about that, Ellen. That's a great first step. Real quick, before we let you two go, we know that you have a busy day, I'm sure 48 hours with everything going on up there in Vancouver. What are you wearing to the game, and what will be your reaction when either team scores a goal?
We'll probably be the way we always are. We just sit there and enjoy our kids' play, and probably with very little emotion. And it's a humbling sport, and we just try to keep our feet on the ground and just be supportive when we can be.
Jim's a lot less emotional than me. Like, God forbid should I clap. He'll give me one of these. But we have fun with it. We're very quiet. We watch, and we just, we root for both teams, and obviously want the three of them to be at their best to help their team come out with a win. We would love a tie, but we don't have any say in it, and get to overtime and they at least get a point. But as far as wardrobe goes, I haven't even thought about it, but I will have something Vancouver and Canucks going.
Oh, I like that. There are shirts out there that say, I just want both teams to have fun. So maybe you guys can find one of those.
Well, I will say real quick, you guys are lucky one of them's not a goalie. Then it would get real awkward trying to figure out who to root for and when to cheer. So you should be lucky that one's not in the net.
By the way, Corey, Luke wanted to be a goalie. All he wanted to do was be a goalie. And every time he went in net, he was brutal. But the poor guy, he's got stuck in net by his two brothers.
I was going to say, that's how I became a goalie. My older brother stuck me in the net. But I think Luke made the right call on this one, so he's doing just fine. So I'm glad you guys are.
Goalie by committee.
He got deterred quickly because he's doing pretty well, so that's great.
That's incredible. Well, Jim, Ellen, thank you so much, and congratulations on all the success that not only the two of you had, but all three sons.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.